let's face it, next promotion, there's more money. You get more of this, you get more of that. It was never about, I've got to make the most money or I've got to make this rank to feel successful. It was how many soldiers I helped, how many soldiers I got to work with, to this day, still having soldiers call me, how many first sergeants came out of the soldiers that I trained and worked with. That's what I inventory my success on.
You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks Podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. We are finally back in the Roughnecks studio. I've been recording elsewhere lately. I've been recording in a lot of gyms, as you may have seen as the episodes have came out, but we're back in the Roughnecks studio, and one announcement, I haven't made announcements in a while, but one announcement is I am working on next year's volleyball tournament. Next year's volleyball tournament, there's some new things that are coming into it, so be on the lookout for some announcements on that, but other than that, that's really all it is. But without further ado, Jimmie Hawke, welcome. Do you like Jim or Jimmie?
It's funny. All my close friends call me Jimmie. Acquaintances call me Jim. My in-laws call me James.
Oh yeah, so you get all of them.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
I didn't know. Honestly, I was like, I've always called everybody's volleyball's always referred to you as Jimmie. So like,
yeah.
And then when I was like Jimmie, I don't know what to go with on the podcast. So.
Yeah, if you call my phone number right now, my greeting is you've reached Jimmie's phone.
All right. So Jimmie's the go-to.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny how we met, and it is funny how Newark Station has opened up a lot of things for me in the podcast as well.
No doubt.
We met at volleyball, which with your background and everything about you, I feel like people wouldn't suspect that that's where we met.
Nope.
Because,
right.
I mean, I'm in the guns.
Mm-hmm.
I like military. I read military history a lot, and I listen to Jocko's podcast and Cleared Hot. Like, I love military, and it's something that I don't want to say I kind of did wish I pursued when I was, I almost joined the National Guard when I was in high school, right out of high school, I guess, and then college football called, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go. I've always wanted to play.
Mine was opposite.
Really?
I wanted to play college football and the Army called.
Yeah, so it's funny too, my history with the National Guard. So I got recruited in high school, my recruiter and everything. Fast forward till about we'll say 6 months ago, I was sitting there and like my boss his daughter plays travel softball, and he had a coach and he kept saying the name, and I was like, that name just sounds so familiar. And then one day he came into the shop and I was like, holy crap, that was my recruiter in high school. And me and him actually connected again. And, that's 17 till 24. So like
7 years ago.
Yeah, 7 years where we actually got connected again. And he was like, you still thinking about joining? And I was like, I'm not opposed, but I don't know how I would make it work and everything. But I didn't end up doing it again. But I had two opportunities kind of you always have the opportunity.
Sure.
But, so that's kind of the funny thing. But just to kind of kick this episode off, I allow the guests to give a background on themselves because no matter how much research I do, I will never do it justice. So tell the Roughnecks listeners kind of who you are.
All right. Well, I'm a Newark boy. I born and raised right here in Newark. I've been a blessed kid. I started my life off in my bathroom. I was born on the bathroom floor. They're right here in Newark.
Wow.
No joke.
I don't want to say that's the most Newark thing I've ever heard, but that's kind of Newark.
That's kind of Newark. Yeah, that's Newark way.
Yeah.
I was on the front page of the Advocate that next day.
Really?
Yeah. Unfortunately, the title was called "Will They Name Him John?" But yeah, born on the bathroom floor, right here in Newark. Went to school here in Newark. Played high school football. Co-captain my football team my senior year. Played center, defensive end, defensive tackle. Loved it. Thought for sure that was where my future was headed. Hurt my ankle in about the third game, I think. Akron and everyone else stopped writing me, after I hurt my ankle. I only weighed about 175 pounds. So, I mean, it's not like I was going to do something, amazing. But yeah, they stopped calling. So I went in and talked to a recruiter, and all my buddies are like, you are not going into the military. And I'm like, I come from a blue collar family. Mom, dad aren't going to pay for my college.
Right.
I want to go to college, but mom, dad can't pay for it. And I don't want to go to work and try to go to school. I'm just not mature enough to do both. So sure enough, I joined active duty. Went 3 years down in Fort Hood, Texas. Was in the logistics. And when I was getting ready to leave, I had to go see a national reserve recruiter. And they said they'll pay for my college 100% and give me a bonus like $2,500. And to a college, to a kid who's getting ready to start college, $2,500 in 1996 was pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I didn't hate the military. I just had plans, and well, shoot, I'll join the National Guard. So that's what I did for about 3 years. Just your traditional National Guard soldier. Okay. Met my wife, girlfriend at the time, playing volleyball. Volleyball's just...
That's the other thing too. I wanted to mention. It's funny how we didn't know each other, but we started. Me and Sierra started playing, and you guys kept looking at Sierra like she looks familiar.
Yo,
you guys used to play with her mom.
That's right.
Correct.
That's right. I think I played with her dad too at one time, one tournament. Yep.
That's crazy to think. I mean, that's what I keep trying to get Stacy to play in volleyball tournaments, and she's like, no. Yeah. I think she played the first year just to kind of help with the teams, but she's like, I'm done with it. I'm only playing 1 year and I'm done.
Yep. So. Yeah. But yeah, I went to school for 3 years, went to the branch here in Newark.
Okay.
And got to the point where I'd been dating Trisha, I think a couple years at this point, and it got to the point where I'd rather go see her than go to class. And she would inevitably call me on the days I had class, and she'd say, hey, we're all going to get together and play volleyball. And somehow my Jeep would find its way to the volleyball court and never to class. So it got to the point where I was like, okay, let's just, get out of school. But about that same time, like I said, I'm a blessed man. Somehow I got invited to go to Italy for 3.5 months, or 2.5 months, I'm sorry. And so I did it. I went to Italy on an unaccompanied tour with the Guard to go help an active duty unit pass some inspections, and decided that, hey, this military thing, I'm pretty good at it and I like it. And so when I came back, I pretty much convinced myself I'm not going back to school. And the National Guard offered me an AGR position, Active Guard Reserve. So basically a full-time active position. And so that's what I did. And I accepted it, married Trisha, spent the next 17 years in the Guard as an AGR. Okay. Retired at 41. And that was the plan all along, was, not that I hated the military. Once again, I enjoyed it, loved it. I retired as a first sergeant, had 275 soldiers at one time, loved it. And I retired at the 371st Sustainment Brigade out in Springfield. Okay. And just loved it. Loved working with young people. I loved, just helping them through life, because God knows I've hit enough road bumps in my life.
Yeah, I mean, we all do. It's just like it, and that's the thing, is it never stops either. They just continue to come across.
Oh yeah, they've come to my office constantly. Hey Top, I got this problem, and I'm like, well, let's do it. I mean, they were as simple as I'm struggling in school. I got a DUI. To as I had one soldier who lost his girlfriend to cancer. Oof. Yep. I got some phone calls in the middle of the night, where guys were just on the edge.
So you're almost essentially, with your position that you were kind of a counselor at the same time, or like a psychiatrist or a therapist in a way.
I was more of a sounding board, and I was also a wealth of resources. Okay. So when someone comes to me, and let's say they're on drugs, you pop hot on a drug test in the military, they'll kick you out. But if you tell me beforehand, before you pop hot, before you cross that line, you come in and say, hey, Top, I got a problem, I can help you. And I used to tell them that all the time, and I'd be willing to help you. Once you pop hot, there's nothing I can do for you. So, I used to help them all the time. I know you went to a party in college, and something happened. I used to jokingly say, whenever the hottest girl or the hottest guy ever walks up to you and wants you to do something you shouldn't be doing, I said, you just put this face on that body, it'll stop you instantly. I promise you. Promise.
I kind of want to ask, like, so with the being, I forget exactly what you called it, but you were active, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you could get deployed at any time.
I could get deployed with my unit. So in the National Guard, as AGR in the National Guard, you were assigned to that unit.
Okay.
You know, I retired with a full-time active duty retirement, military benefits. But in the National Guard, I was assigned to that unit. So if that unit deployed, then I deployed.
How likely is it for the National Guard? Like, what is, because this is just me trying to learn about
Sure.
it. How likely is the National Guard to get deployed? And whether does deployment also mean like maybe national tragedies or,
Sure.
things in the United States of whether, hurricane relief and stuff like that. So like, what is the deployment like and how likely is it?
They normally go on a rotational basis.
Okay.
So there's a unit just like I was in my 371st Airman Brigade. There's other units just like us all over the country. So we all rotated, to deployments. Normally about 4 to 5 years we deploy, and we're on that rotation. So, and a lot of soldiers, they would transfer to another unit, and sometimes they would deploy, and then they transfer to another unit, and then they were on the rotation, and they got deployed, and then they might, transfer to another unit and get deployed again.
So is that on purpose, or is that
sometimes it was?
Okay,
sometimes it was.
Sometimes people wanted to actually be,
Yeah.
because actually Sierra's brother is actually getting deployed in February. He's going to Kuwait. He's National Guard, and he's getting deployed to Kuwait for 9 months to a year.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know if and I knew it was not voluntary per se. So I didn't know if I know there is. Is there also voluntary?
Yeah,
ones?
you can volunteer to go. They also keep an eye on how often you've gone, when your last deployment was, and all that. But yes, you can always volunteer to go on one if they need your MOS and your rank structure. Yeah, you can volunteer, but they kind of control. They try to control that.
Okay. So what exactly was your role towards the end, I'll say? And I want to just start with the end. So like, what was your full-time role? Like you said, you were in charge of people. Like, what did that entail?
Okay. So I was the battalion operations NCO Monday through Friday.
Okay.
On the weekends or deployment or AT, I was assigned to the first sergeant position, which is just the senior enlisted advisor. I do whatever the commander, I execute whatever the commander needs me to do, or needs the unit to do. So I wasn't even the highest ranking NCO in my unit, because I had sergeants major and other E8s that outranked me. But yeah, I would hold the formation. I would know what we need to accomplish that drill weekend or that AT. I was responsible for making sure if we got deployed or at AT, I'd make sure that all our soldiers' needs were taken care of, i.e. they had a place to stay, a place to sleep, a place to eat. Everything was taken care of. All the logistics were taken care of. Communicate with battalion. Whenever they needed us to do something, then I would direct my platoon sergeants to make whatever needed to happen, make that happen. So, yeah, just basically whatever they need me to do, whatever our unit needed to do, they were looking at me to make sure it got done.
Yeah.
So.
Like you said, you were logistics. You were making sure everything kind of went smoothly, per se. And
right.
So that makes sense. I kind of want to ask, too, kind of going back a little bit. You didn't start there. It was what did you say, 17 years?
17 years, yeah.
17-year process to get to the position that you were in. You started as the grunt. I kind of want your thoughts on what it takes to build up to that, because it's not, you can't just go through the motions and get there. You have to work your ass off, per se, to get to where you want to be. So kind of take me through the process and the mindset of it, of building yourself up to get yourself into that position.
When I got promoted to Master Sergeant, one of the things I told the company when I was standing in front of them, and I'm getting promoted, the promotion ceremony, and I told them, I did a little speech, and I told them, I was like, I didn't make it here because I'm smart or good looking. Neither one had anything to do with my success or my accomplishments. It was when.
That's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
When the military needed me, they called on me, and I'd perform. That was just what I did, and that's what I made sure I did. I wasn't doing it for promotion. I wasn't doing it for awards. I'm a proud person, so whenever someone tasks me to do something, then I just do it the best I can. And that's why I always told the soldiers, I was a sergeant first class, and I was in charge of an ammo detail So I was in charge of ammo. This wasn't even my MOS at this point. I was out of the out of the supply world and into light wheel vehicle mechanic. I was into a whole different job, but they knew that I had that experience. So they said, "Hey, Hawk, we need you to take care of the ammo for this AT." I'm like, okay, whatever, I had one truck, and they started giving me the list of ammo that I had to pick up and distribute to 6 or 7 different places each morning for a month.
Oof.
And I'm like, okay. And I'm looking at the list. And I'm like, this is nuts. I had 1 deuce-and-a-half, that I was planning on using. I needed 4 tractor trailers and 2 other deuces with trailers on the back of there. It was the largest ammo draw that Camp Atterbury, Indiana had since World War II.
Wow.
Yeah. And like, how do you trust this dummy to do that? I mean, just why? But I did it, you know what I mean? And didn't like it. I probably complained every single day. The lieutenant colonel, the battalion commander would ask me, hey, Hawk, how did it go today? And I'm like, well, no one died. No one went to jail.
Yeah. I mean,
that's
a good point.
I mean, it was crazy. So it was things like that, details like that. I wouldn't necessarily raise my hand for it.
Yeah.
But they knew that I would do it.
Right.
And not only do it, but successfully do it and put everything I had into it. And I just come home and complain to Trish.
Hey, Sierra understands exactly because I come home every day from work and there's something that went wrong usually. Yeah. And it's, I mean, I feel like she complains about work too. So it's back and forth. Yeah. But I like one of the things that you said where you said, I didn't do it for awards. I didn't do it for a promotion. That's how I feel like we're getting in. I don't know if it's always been this way per se, but I know seeing it with my generation, especially where a lot of people are like, well, what does it get me?
Right.
And if it doesn't get me anything, then I'm not going to do it.
Oh, yes.
But you don't realize that you are putting building blocks down essentially maybe for that.
Exactly.
And that's not the whole I mean, I guess like kind of in work, you're trying to get promoted and trying to build up.
Of course.
But if you don't get the fact that you are going to do things that maybe you're not getting paid for it.
Right.
Like it's not in your pay and not what you do, because that's becoming a big thing that I notice with a lot of people that I talk to. Some of my, I'll call them friends. I guess they're more acquaintances, but they'll complain about work and it's like, well, I don't get paid to do this. And it's like, yeah, well, you could be one day if you start doing those little things. And don't get taken advantage of.
Sure. But
you have to put those building blocks down of being willing to do what they want you to do, because that usually pays off in the end. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how many ATs, how many missions, how many training assignments, how many deployments. I had guys that were getting paid more than me and doing 1/10 of the work.
Right.
And they like to point that out just so it pissed me off. Hawk, you realize, you're working like 18-hour days and, I'm putting in 2. I'm getting paid more than you. But I knew then that every decision I made had an effect on my future, good or bad. It always does, so if you choose to do the best you can, it's going to have an effect. If you choose to pass, if you choose to hide, if you choose to, skate, it will have an effect.
That's fair. How much do you think somebody should focus on their future? Like whether it be like with your career, I guess we'll go off of that, but like, because your benefits are, I would like to say, pretty good.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
Once you end up retiring and you make a career out of it.
I'm done now.
Yeah, that's another thing that we may discuss. But, like, how much do you think they should focus on that? Or, I guess, like, not to put you on the spot, but do you wish you to pride a little more, per se, and tried to maybe get that another promotion or a pay raise in that sense? Or
I tell you what, when I retired, I told Trisha that I may not make it past starting first class, E7.
Okay.
And that's okay. And I told her, I said, I'm still proud of what I've done. I can look back right now and I'm extremely proud of what I've done. One of the things I take inventory in is how many soldiers almost 9 years later are still calling me, still talking to me, still asking me to come to their wedding, come to their baby's birth, to their promotion, to their retirement. I've got so many soldiers that still get a hold of me. So that's what I kind of inventory, my success on. But I never eyed that promotion. I was only one more promotion. I was Sergeant Major, E9. And I did talk to the leadership and I said, hey, they wanted me to stay. the state sergeant major said, I had plans for you to make sergeant major and do this. And I said, well, how soon? How soon is that going to happen? Because I have a plan. I told Trisha, we had this plan all along to be done at 41. And I'm like, how long? Do you have something lined up now? That I can go to training, go to Sergeant Major Academy, become a Sergeant Major and move into that position and go? Or do I have to chase it for the next 2, 3, 4 years, then go to the academy and then stay for another 3 years? So we're looking at possibly a 7 to 8 year commitment, or leave it on my plan, leave on my terms, on my plan. And that's what I decided to do. And like I said, and one of the things I look back on that career and I'm like, it was so successful. And, that's all I cared about was I can look myself in the mirror every morning. I got to shave this face or, brush these teeth. Am I proud of the man looking back at me? And I am, and that's where I drew that line. I was never looking, because they'd always like, let's face it, in the next promotion, there's more money. You get more of this, you get more of that. It was never about, I've got to make the most money or I've got to make this rank to feel successful. It was how many soldiers I helped, how many soldiers I got to work with, to this day, still having soldiers call me, how many first sergeants came out of the soldiers that I trained and worked with. That's what I inventory my success on.
Wow. That was awesome. I love that. I'm not saying I was like searching for that answer, but it was like, where could he take this? And you laid it out perfectly. That's what I wish more people in their life, including myself, looked at. We always chase money. We always chase. It's a normal thing to want to chase it and do that. But if you look at who you help, and like too many people today gauge their success off of money, when if you look at it like you just said, and of how many people you helped, of how many people still contact you and that stuff, that's awesome. And I kind of want to go into a little bit too. You talked about you had a plan.
Oh yeah.
And I want to ask about that plan if I can, because you had, I know of it. I think we talked about it one night at volleyball. Kind of tell me about your plan that you had originally. And I like that also off of that you talked about how soon. It's like, all right, maybe I will consider it, but I'm not going to drag this out any longer than I need to. Yep. So kind of tell me about the plan that you set and when you set it.
Yeah. So when we got married, it was funny. Trisha, she's a strong-willed girl, and yeah, she's kind of a strong-willed girl. And one day, we're coming back from a date, and she looked at me and she goes, "Just so you know, I'm not having any kids." And she rolled her head just like that. She was about 19 at the time, and it kind of caught me off guard. I'm like, "What does a 19-year-old know about?" Yeah, I think I was 22, and I'm like, "What does a 19-year-old know about her? What she wants?" So she said, "I'm not having any kids." And I'm okay with that. I love kids. I wouldn't mind having kids, but I'm okay with that. But I told her, I said, any wife of mine who doesn't have kids is going to work until I'm done working. But that also means that we're both going to be able to stop working at a much earlier age. So I told her, I was like, and I just joined Guard, I think at this time, active duty Guard. And I told her, I was like, I am eligible to retire at 41 years old. If we're not going to have any kids, we are going to put that plan together. We're going to have the house paid off, cars paid off, some money in the IRAs. We're going to have this financial plan put together so that when I'm 41 years old, I don't ever have to work again. Healthcare be taken care of. We have a check coming in every month from retirement for the rest of our life. So that's what I had my eye on is, at 41, her and we can go play volleyball. We can go travel. We can do whatever we want, at a very, very early age. So that was always what I had planned. Now there was a couple of days where I came home and I'm so angry with what happens at work. I'm steaming mad. Like I don't know how many times I resigned at home.
Oh, me too. I think I've quit my job 100 times.
There you go. And Trisha would always tell me, she's like, "Do you know what health insurance costs in the civilian world?" And I'm like, I can
tell you it's not cheap.
Nope.
And I currently do not have it.
Well, she would sit there and she would point that out to me, and I'm like, I don't care. I was that angry. But then she would always be my sounding board. I'd just vent. She'd accept it, and next morning I'd go back to work and get back after it. But no, the whole plan was to be done at 41 so her and I could actually go enjoy life. At 41, my parents were still healthy. They're still healthy. But at 41, I get to spend time with my family. She gets to spend time with her family. We're not, chasing that dollar bill, Dad was not happy when I decided to go guard full time. He wanted me to finish college. To this day, he still watches college football with me and asks, when am I going to go finish my degree? But that was never part of the plan, I didn't want to work till I was 60. Don't want to work till I'm 70, I want to be done as early as possible. So,
right. Yeah, that's one of the things that I currently personally have started to kind of look into of, I just watched, my dad just retired this year, actually. He's in his 60s, and it was one of those where he wasn't going to retire at the time that he did. He was going to retire, I believe, just about now. He actually retired end of September. He was going to retire at the end of this year or March of next year, I think. And it got to the point at work where he kind of did the similar to your situation where he was like, I'm just done. Like he's done with all the changes. He's put in his time, and he actually called his financial advisor and was like, hey, well, I know we talked about retiring in March, but how do we feel about the end of September? And he looked over and he's like, yeah, you could do that. And it's just, I've kind of personally looked at it of, I don't want to work my whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, you see so many people coming from the blue collar world. You've seen it as well. Concrete guys.
Oh yeah.
Those guys will work until they're dead.
Till they're dead.
Literally. That's they'll probably die on a job.
Yep.
Cause I mean, I put in pools and stuff, and we have one of our concrete guys. His dad is 80 some years old, still goes out and pours concrete every day.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't want to do that.
No.
I don't want to be in that position.
No.
So like, I look at people like you, and I learn from things like my dad, and I look at that and I'm like, it's possible. Now, do you think that you guys didn't have kids? Do you think kids would have extended that, or would you have kept potentially that same schedule? I mean, it's hard to say also.
It's hard to say. I would have tried to keep the same schedule, but I also realized that, colleges are expensive.
They're stupid.
Yes. So I also, I'm smart enough to know that, my expenses just increased exponentially. So I would have had to have done something. That plan would have had to have changed, of which I would have done,
Yeah.
But, if that means I would have retired at 41 because I'm getting a retirement and then I go get another job, like when I went to BSC, that's just money on top of the retirement, and healthcare is taken care of. I mean, I probably wouldn't have had to work till I was dead, but I still would have had to work longer,
right?
With kids.
Yeah, you mentioned BSC. We'll just dive into it now. Kind of, first off, BSC as in Buckeye Shooting Center. How did that come about? And what, I guess, like we talked before we started recording, there's some things you still are not at liberty to say
Sure.
But how did it come about, and what exactly was your role with it?
Okay, yeah. So when I retired in 2016 from the Guard.
Okay.
In 2018, I wouldn't say I was bored, but I'm always looking around. I'm always looking for an opportunity. And I love guns. And, as a retired guy, I didn't have the gun money that I wanted. So this happened to come up. I think Trisha saw it on Facebook, and she's like, hey, you can get a job here. It was only part-time. And so I applied.
Was that when they
were on 21st Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they just need a part-time salesman. I'm like, this is perfect, not a full-time commitment. We can still play, if I only got to go to work a couple of days a week. And so I go, and they interviewed me, and they liked me right away. They invited me back for a second interview, and they offered me a job. But it was supposed to be like 3 days a week. No, maybe it was 4 or 5 days a week, 5 hours a day. And Trisha mentioned to me, she's like, do you really want to go back to work Monday through Friday? Even if it's just 5 hours, that cuts out, full days. You can't go out of town if you got to go to work. So I went to that interview, and they're like, well, we want to offer you the job, but we kind of want you to work full time, not just 5 hours, but we want you to work full time. And I'm like, guys, I hate to tell you this, but my wife and I talked, and we kind of want to do 3 days a week at 5 hours. And which turned out great, because they had a young lady that they loved also, so they got to hire both of us.
Okay.
So it just worked out great. But when they mentioned, I think it was on the second interview, they said we're looking at maybe opening up a range here in Newark. an indoor range. I don't know exactly how much they cost, but I know they're expensive. And I literally looked at him and was like, good luck with that. And walked out. And I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it was a dream of theirs, and that's what they wanted to do. So the wheels were rolling all the way back in 2018. And it was 2020, I think it was. 2020, we got approved for the loan. They did a lot of research and, hey, come to find out we can make this happen. So we did. We got approved for the loan and started, broke ground in 2021 and opened up in October 2021. Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, they needed a general manager.
Okay.
And they're like, hey, we want you to be the general manager based on the leadership. Cause I mean, they're military guys also. Mm-hmm. Based on what they knew about my leadership, they thought I could be the general manager, which, sure. I've never been a general manager. I've never been really in retail until today, but hey, I'll play. So I started looking up, hey, what does it take to be a general manager at this level? This many, I almost said soldiers, but this many employees, this level.
What a way. That's what I wanted to say. Does it translate a little bit with your rank that you were in the military? Is also, does it kind of, obviously it's a little bit different, but it's still along the same aspects, I'll say.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a mission, in the military, whether civilian, we have a mission, we have a goal, and we need to accomplish it. And these are the folks that are going to make it happen. All I've got to do is execute the plan, right. But the plan is normally built by someone else. So they I'm looking up general manager. I'm like, okay, how do I be a good general manager? I'm trying to learn. And they're like, hey, come to find out, the chairman of the board and the CEO really shouldn't be the same person. So we need a CEO. And I'm like, well, go get one. Go find one. And they're like, we're voting on you next week. We're voting on you, and we're going to, see if everyone on the board agrees. And sure enough, it was unanimous. They made me the CEO. And I told them, I was like, boys, I just learned how to spell GM. How do you expect me to spell CEO? So yeah, the whirlwind of being the CEO of the company started then. And I was a part of all the building, all the roadblocks we ran into, part of the financial decisions and, all that stuff and getting that thing off the ground. And I told him back then, I was like, okay, here's the deal. I'll be your GM or your CEO, whatever you need me to be. But, I still have a plan of not working past 50. Guys, I don't want to work past 50, and not because I'm lazy, but because I still want to spend time with my family. Right. That plan of being retired at 41 still applies, just 9 years later. But I still want to spend time with my wife. I want to go traveling with her. I want to play volleyball. I want to go hunting. I want to go fishing. I want to go golfing. My parents are still alive, so I want to spend time with them. So I told them I was like 50 and I'm done. Sure enough, I turned 50 here in about 4 days. Yeah, 4 days. And so things are going well, and I'm having fun. It's stressful. I would almost guess, I'd almost venture to say it was more stressful to open up a brand new business at that level than being the first sergeant. Really? Yeah. And the reason being is I'm familiar, 20 some years of being a soldier. I know what soldiers go through. I know what they're going to run into next. I can help them with that. A couple of years into being a CEO of a range, there's still things happening, especially in this economy. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Like it was stressful because I'm like, how do we make this work? How do we grow this thing? And, small businesses, a lot of them fail within the first 5 years or so.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
hopefully mine's not one of them.
No, they won't. It won't be. It won't be. But anyway, no matter how hard I worked, no matter how long I worked, no matter what, no matter how much I prayed, no matter how much I wished, the job didn't get much easier.
Right.
So it was back in April when the weather started to break. Mm-hmm. I started thinking about fishing. And I sat there and I was like, guys, I know I was going to wait till December, but I think I need to be done by June 1st. So.
See, yeah, it's similar to my dad, like where it was like, I was going to wait till then, but I give you a lot of credit because, it's very, I don't want to say hard, but it's a little difficult to go into an interview process, especially. I mean, did you need the job? Not necessarily. Did you want the job? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But also to kind of put your foot down of like, this is what I want. Mm-hmm. And this is how it's going to go. If these are not the standards that you can meet, then I'm
It's
done.
cool. Yeah.
And I give a lot of respect to that because I'm one that's very bad about that of like, oh yeah, okay, I'll get walked over. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh crap, wait, I did it again.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's, I mean, and my mom did the same thing when she got her job. Her big thing, she watches all the grandkids. I have 8 nieces and nephews. She watches all of them. Now they're in school, but she always watched them on Fridays. And she told them when she went in, she goes, I will not work Fridays. I will work. She told him, I'll work as many hours as you want during the week, Monday through Thursday.
But not
Fridays, I will not work. So I give you a lot of credit for that. And being able to be, strong-willed enough, I guess, to be like, this is what I want. And if you can't meet this criteria, it's not meant to be.
It's funny because when I was in the Guard, I sat there and, when they piled all those missions on me, I would say, yes, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll crush it. I'll crush it. I'll crush it. And then I come home and I'm tired and I'm worn out and I'm like, why did I do that? And I wouldn't say I regretted it, but, I didn't see the fruits of that labor right away.
Right.
And when you're in it, you're just like, oh man, they're always tasking me with all this crazy stuff. And then, when I look back on it, and when I told those soldiers that day when, I got promoted E8, I'm like, hey, when they tasked me with something, I crushed it. When they tasked me with something, I did it. When they tasked me with something, I didn't sit there and whine and complain or do it half-assed. I just did it,
Right.
and I just went after it. Pride normally drove me, but I just did. Normally there were soldiers on the other end that was relying on me to do it well. So, I wouldn't say they walked all over me, but I mean, it's the military.
Right.
It's the government. Hawk, do this. Roger that. I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
And then so it helped in the civilian world that I already had that taken care of. I already had a check coming in every month. The house is paid off. The cars are paid off. I have no outstanding debt. I didn't need this job. Wanted it, obviously. I tell you what, I was nervous when I applied for it.
Really?
Trisha laughed at me, but I'm like, I love guns. I know guns. And I didn't realize how little I knew about guns until I started working there.
Really?
It was crazy. I sit there.
I would not have expected that, especially coming from the military. You guys
Yep.
deal, I mean, I know Sierra's brother talks about it a lot. They deal with guns every drill pretty
Yep.
much. So like, I'm surprised. So you still learned a lot about guns, even though you maybe not thought you knew everything about it, but you thought you knew more than you did.
In my circle of friends and family, I was the gun guru. Then I got to the shop. Just a part-time gig, and I had customers coming in and asking me things that I didn't know anything about. Like, for instance, and this is going to sound very ignorant, when I first started working there, I didn't know what the Glock models were. I mean, I knew what a Glock was, but I couldn't tell you what a Glock 19 was versus a Glock 17.
Right. I can't tell you. I'm not that good on guns, but I didn't, because I actually personally have a Glock 19, and I wouldn't be able to tell you if you put something else beside it. I probably wouldn't be able to tell you the difference.
Isn't that funny? And then I'm the one behind the counter.
Right.
These people are coming in and asking me questions from a knowledgeable source, and I'm like, I just felt ignorant. But in the military, you deal with just a couple models,
Right.
the M16, the M9. In my days, the M9. Now the Sig M17. But you only deal with a couple models, and that's it. And you're very limited on what you're allowed to do. You can take it apart and clean it, but you can't take it completely apart. So when you got a customer coming in, they're like, "Hey, I'm building this AR. I need a whatever spring," and I'm like, "Where the hell is that? Where's that spring?"
I don't even know where that goes.
Right? But I'm supposed to be the knowledgeable one.
Right.
What's funny is, like I said, in my circle of friends, I was a gun guru. I got there. I felt like I was the most incompetent idiot. Learn quick. Because when you ask me a question, I'm like, I pull out my phone. I'm like, what is a Glock 17?
I mean, I guess that's also goes to show you never stop learning.
No.
That's
No.
what I've personally really tried to embrace that of.
Yeah.
And that's like, I will say that's a big reason I do the podcast.
Mhm.
I get a lot of people on that I'm like, man, like I would have never expected that. Like, I mean, just there's a lot of things that you can learn through just talking to people.
Yep.
I mean, it's similar doing retail. You're talking to people all day long. You're learning all day long.
Yep.
From customer. You never think you'd learn from your customers, but sometimes you do.
Yeah. No, it was awesome. I had one customer. We always talk sights. When you're in the gun business, they want to talk sights. Everyone wants the best sights and what the proper technique of shooting and this, that, one thing, another. And how a lot of guys come in, they're Billy badasses, they think, and they're like, oh, if you need more than 6 rounds, you shouldn't be carrying a gun. I'm like, you've never had to defend yourself in a real life situation, have you?
I like that.
No. And I'm like, okay, John Wayne, time for you to learn. And that's just not the way it's going to go.
No.
You know, those sights probably wouldn't even matter. You can put your $300 sights on there, and at the range at your target, you know, you think you're doing well, you're using those sights, pop, 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 you're using the right technique, pop. And then it all happens. And not that I know personally, because I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I've been in a lot. No, but I've done a lot of training, and I envision that if somebody's shooting at me, I'm not even going to know where those sights are. I'm not going to see them. I couldn't tell you what color they are. I couldn't tell you that they were all lined up. I can't tell you I was using the right technique. I can't. It's all muscle memory. So I was talking to a young lady. She came in and she said, you know, we were talking sights. And I told her that story, and she goes, oh, I know. Like, what do you mean? And she said, she goes, I had to use it. That happened to me. And I'm like, what happened to you? And so she's like, I had to engage an intruder coming in my house. I'm like, oh my Lord, I'm at the edge of my seat. Like, really? So she sat there and she talked about it. And the way she told this story, I know is real. You know, a lot of people tell stories. No, this one I could feel it was real. So she's in an apartment. There's stairs go into her, you know, as soon as you come through her apartment, the stairs go straight up. And some guy, I don't know if he was drunk, high, whatever, was trying to bust into her apartment. She's screaming. She has a baby, you know, behind her. Oof. And she's screaming at the top of her lungs, don't come in here. I have a gun. Do not come in here. And sure enough, he busted through the door and he headed up the stairs. She has no idea what he's wanting, what he needed. And she's scared. And she had a revolver. And she said she just remembers pulling the trigger. She could hear the noise and her screaming. She ended up hitting him 2 times out of the 6 that she had in the revolver. She ended up hitting him twice. She says she didn't look at the sights. She probably had her eyes closed, quite honestly. Yeah. You know, she's that scared. And but she hit him twice, one in the artery in the leg, and he ended up going out on the front porch and bleeding out. Wow. Yeah. So she confirmed what I've always had in my mind. That's what's going to happen. You know, you don't want to engage. You don't want to do this to another human being. You just want to leave. Yeah. If he would have walked away that night, knocked on someone else's door, he'd still be alive. But, you know, she told that story and she said, all I remember, she said she's pulling the trigger and she don't even know how many times she pulled the trigger. Yeah,
you're just pulling. Yeah. As, like trying to get all the rounds out.
She said she came to mentally click, 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 click. I mean, she's just pulling the trigger, you know, as fast as she can. So just kind of confirm that, you know, I got all these customers that come in like, well, you need more than 6 rounds, you know. I'm like, come on, man, you need more training.
Yeah. I mean, it's you mentioned that you like to hunt buck fever.
Oh yeah.
It's a big thing.
Oh yeah.
If you're a compound bow hunter or even whether the compound bow, any type of weapon, if you have a buck, I've told Sierra got into hunting. She has yet to kill a deer, but like I told her, I was like, when you go to pull on a deer, because she compound hunts, and I was like, when you go to pull, you will be shaking. She's like, no, I won't. I'm like, yes, you will. Yeah, you will. I was like, I will have a baby deer walk in that I know I am not shooting, and my heart still starts racing.
Oh yeah,
it's human, and it's normal, and I like that you mentioned that because a lot of people do think like they act
target
like
practice is real.
Badass. Yeah, like you don't need more than 6 rounds. Yeah. Yes, you might.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't.
Hopefully you don't. Hopefully you don't need one. Yeah. But I always told my customers, they're like, you know, which one's better, this 6-round gun and 45 ACP or this 9mm holds 17? I'm like, I want as many rounds as I can. Right. You know.
Especially when you're talking home defense or carry type weapon, which I kind of wanted to ask too. Do you have a weapon that you would recommend for home defense?
Yeah, a shotgun is probably best.
Really?
Yep. Even a low caliber 410 or 20 gauge is probably best. One, it's not going to go through the walls and kill your neighbor. Yeah. Trish and I have probably 5 or 6 different guns of different calibers. You know, we have a 12 gauge beside the bed. You know, I've got an AR loaded. I don't know how many 9mm or 38 special.
What do you mean? You don't have any of those weapons? I don't know what you're talking.
Oh yeah, after the boating accident, after that nasty boating accident.
No, I've always wondered because a lot of people, you know, there's a little bit of that debate of whether you use a shotgun or you use a pistol, but it makes sense. Like, are you talking like you know, birdshot of where it spreads more?
Yeah.
So that you have a wider range per se.
Yeah. I mean, because you're going to shoot down a hallway or something, you know, you're not going to see the sights.
No.
So you get one shot with a 9mm, and you're going to hope that it hits your target. And
at the very least pushes them away.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I get in that conversation all the time. People are like, oh, which is better, 45 ACP, a 40, a 9mm, a 22. And it never fails. Someone will say, 22 is just going to piss somebody off. I've never been shot by a 22, but quite honestly, if you pointed a 22 at me, I'm going to change my behavior. I don't care.
If you hit me with a paintball gun, it might piss me off, but I'm still not going to come towards you.
Yeah. Anything that goes through the skin, goes into my muscle, I'm done. Okay, I'm good. Yeah. But so you get that conversation a lot. But shotguns are probably the best, with birdshot or any kind of shot, not a slug. Right. But yeah, that would probably be best. But
what are your thoughts, I guess, on like in terms of I don't want to call it locking up weapons, but like, people like to have weapons readily available.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think is like, you may not have like the best option. There may not be a best option, but if you have kids or if you have, maybe little ones running around your house that could potentially get their hands on it, what are your thoughts on the best way to still have a weapon readily available in case of a home defense situation, but still also having them locked up to where they can't be accessed by children, for example?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always pictured, so many different stages of childhood. A 3-year-old can't reach, a 7-foot space that you can.
Yeah.
So obviously you just keep it high enough that they can't reach it. But eventually they're going to get tall enough they can reach that. Eventually they're going to get curious. One of the things my dad did for me was he taught me how to shoot when I was 5-6 years old.
That's huge in my opinion.
Yeah. And I knew where the key was to the gun cabinet. I don't think my mom knew, but I knew. Dad told me, he's like, I'll know if you touch those guns. He had me convinced that, the fingerprints will show. But he taught me gun safety. He taught me respect for that gun. That's where I fell in love with guns. And I never touched them. And I mean this, swear to God, I never touched them when I was a kid. Even when I was a teenager, even when my friends come over and they'd see them in the glass case and they're like, oh man, let's get that out. No. That crap ain't happening. I knew they were all unloaded because I normally cleaned them. Dad wouldn't let me touch them. He had a way of making sure they all got cleaned inside and out. Because when I was a little kid, I'd be looking at him like, Dad, can I get the 12 gauge out? He's like, the rules. I had to clean it inside and out. That was the way he got his guns clean. Because Jimmy, I had to touch them. When I say touch them, I mean like just admire them.
Yeah.
But I never, not once touched it when he wasn't there. Not once. I mean, didn't even occur to me. They're always there. I knew where the key was. I could get in there anytime I wanted to, but I never did, not once. So to answer your question, I think it's important that you got to have them readily available.
Right.
You can't put them in a case that you can't access. I mean, there's some biometric, locks that you can get to quickly, but even then, I mean, it happens so fast.
And also technology fails.
Yes.
At times.
Oh yeah. I have one right now that we can't use. It's underneath my desk and I'm like, why? I've used all 10 digits and I can't freaking get into that thing. I'd use the key. That would be a problem.
Right.
So I think education, but keeping them away, satisfying that curiosity, right. Kids need to know that these are a dangerous weapon, now dumb kids are going to do dumb things,
right.
And
it's never going to end. And it's not always the parent's fault necessarily.
Right.
Could it be? Yes, but
Sure.
It's not always. Sometimes, like you said, it's curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, satisfying that curiosity, like your dad did with you, of allowing you to touch them. All right, now you got to clean it. And it's kind of showing the respect for the weapon.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a respect for every type of weapon that I wish, a lot more people understood. And that's a big thing. And the reason I asked is because, eventually me and Sierra plan to have kids. And it's going to get to the point because, right now, my pistol is right beside the bed.
Yeah.
I'm the only one up there. Me and Sierra are the only ones
Right.
up there. And the kids come over, it gets put up on a shelf.
Sure.
So that way I don't have to worry about it. But, it's just sad. I like that. And it's just allow them to have their curiosity, but teach them at the same time of, this is a danger. I mean, I remember my dad, it was unloaded, but the first time I ever pointed the barrel towards his direction, I got a chewing.
There you go.
But it's, ever since that, I'll never forget it.
Yep.
And whether I have my bow, whether I have a gun, I never point it at somebody.
Yep.
It's always pointed in an opposite direction.
Yep.
I'll never point it at myself. Like it's just learning the ropes essentially.
Yeah. The first time I ever take a kid hunting, I've taken a couple kids hunting. They'll carry a 22 unloaded, so they get used to that muzzle awareness. You know, they need to know. And every time they point at my feet or point at my legs or God forbid my head, you know, I have to correct that.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's unloaded. I don't even get ammo near that. Actually, they normally leave the ammo in the truck. You know, that way they have to carry it. They know it's unloaded. So, but they still know that the muzzle awareness is the most important thing.
Right.
You know, and then once they've shown that they understand that, then I'll let them load it. Still going to be a 22 because I really don't want a 12 gauge shot.
Yeah, that would not be fun. Definitely not.
That's exciting. You guys are thinking about having kids. That's cool.
Yeah. We've definitely. I need to probably marry her at some point too.
She's worth it. She's a good
can't
girl.
Hear this.
She's a good girl.
Yeah, she is. I guess definitely cannot complain with her. She's
Nope.
pretty freaking awesome. I've had it pretty good for the past 3 years. So, but kind of also wanted to speak on. I kind of wanted to dive into it a little bit. I don't know how deep you'll want to get into it, but you know, there's always this debate of guns in this country.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm for guns, and elections do play a role. Did you guys ever notice, I don't know if you can speak on it for say, a difference in business when it came to election time or who was in office? Without getting too political either.
No, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I don't know that elections really changed a lot. It was normally events that changed our business. COVID, holy crap. When everyone thought that, you know, the world was coming to an end, we couldn't keep guns on the shelf.
Right.
Couldn't keep ammo on the shelf. I mean, it was crazy. But that was an event. I know a lot of the school shootings, the big school shootings, you'll get a lot more people coming because they think they're going to get banned because politicians say they're going to ban them. You know, Joe Biden is one of the best gun salesmen we have. I mean, let's be honest. Obama was the same way.
Yeah.
You know, they were great at selling guns for us because they'd say they're going to ban them.
When they think that they're going to go away, look at toilet paper during COVID.
Right.
When you think it's going to disappear, you have to get it now.
Right. Yeah. So it wasn't necessarily elections that drove business, but it was events. And then the politicians' rhetoric afterward that drove business.
Right.
You know, and certainly not ever would we ever want a negative event to happen.
Correct.
You know, but when it did, you could almost guarantee that a politician at some level, whether it's at the federal or state level, somebody was going to say something about banning guns. They're going to propose that, and then everyone comes running. You know, like, oh crap, I better get my AR before they take it away from me. Ammo the same way. So,
do you ever think that we will see a time that guns are banned?
Better not. It won't happen in my lifetime.
That's what I'm with you. I don't think it'll. I think it was made the Second Amendment for a reason.
Yep.
And you know that's where I think a lot of people. There's always the gun debate, which I mean I don't want to make anything political or anything like that, but at the same time, it's like it was made the Second Amendment for a reason, and I don't think in our lifetimes that we will ever see that disappear. I just wanted to see.
No, I don't think it'll ever happen. Not like I said, not in our lifetime, not in your kid's lifetime.
No.
I don't think it'll happen.
The debate and the process of people wanting it to happen will always continue.
Yep.
That will never go away. I don't expect it to go away.
No.
But I also don't get too bent out of shape about it. I think a lot of people do. It's like, if it's going to happen, there's a lot of stuff that it's got to go through for guns to be banned completely.
Oh yeah. Guns will never necessarily. I don't think it'll ever be banned. There's no way to take all those guns off the streets.
Correct.
You know.
Well, that's the other thing is people always talk about, you know, making it harder to get guns. Well, you know, people in the hood are getting guns real easy every day.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen the same way that it's already been happening.
Yeah. They don't sell meth at CVS, but somehow we find it everywhere.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
It's like, you know, so I'm all about, you know, gun control.
Right.
Hitting where you're aiming. But not making me a felon. You know, I am one of the people in this world that would protect our country, protect the citizens of our country, protect my family. Don't make me a felon. You know, I'm not the guy you need to stop from having a gun. Right. You know, gangs have guns all the time. And for some reason, I don't hear any conversations about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite honestly, if you take gang violence out of the numbers, then gun violence gun deaths drop dramatically. You take
yes.
take a couple cities out, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York City, take those out, and next thing you know, we've got next to no gun violence. Not none, but
You're right.
it's very, the numbers just drastic. I don't know what they are. I want to say like 75, 80%. It's crazy. But
what's the process like for you guys selling a gun? Because that's what I think a lot of people also don't have the conception of it's not like it seems like a fairly quick process, but there is checks that happen throughout that process, and it's just happened now that technology allows it to be a lot faster than it used to be. So like if I was coming in to buy a gun, and what's the process like?
Well, you're going to first fill out a form. You're going to answer a lot of questions. Are you hooked on drugs? Are you an illegal alien? Are you, have you ever been not charged, but convicted of domestic violence?
Okay.
You're going to answer all these questions. Hunter Biden, he gets to answer them however he wants, and he still gets his guns. But you and I, we have to answer them correctly, and we have to answer them honestly.
Right.
So once you answer all those questions, and then we fill out that form, we verify that you are who you are, and then we send that form to the FBI, and they'll do their background check, make sure that you aren't a felon, that you answer that correctly, and that you're allowed to purchase this weapon. If they have to do some more research, let's say you've had some court cases, maybe not necessarily anything violent, but you've had some court cases, you're assigned to some court cases, then they're going to do some extensive research, but they never tell us why or how. So, this is me speculating. I feel like I'm fairly accurate on it, but they're going to look and see, have you done anything wrong? Well, if you've moved to all these different places, they're looking for Jimmie Hawke in Phoenix, Arizona, Jimmie Hawke with the same social security number, Jimmie Hawke in all these different places. They've got some extensive research to do. If I'm not necessarily police officers, they get delayed a lot.
Really?
Yeah. And you would think, how's that happen? So this is where this thought process comes from. I believe that they make a lot of arrests. Their name is attached to that court case, not as the defendant, but as just the arresting officer.
Because they are involved in that court case for say.
So there's all this extensive research. They got to make sure that he isn't the defendant, So that's the only thing I can come up with. Why else will a police officer get delayed?
Right. Yeah. I'd like to say very few that should be delayed.
Right. Yeah. So, so that's where it comes in. The FBI comes back and says, hey, he's clean. We can sell you the gun right then. Sometimes it takes just a couple of minutes. Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes you get delayed for 5 days. It just depends on.
Have you ever had to turn someone away?
Oh, yeah.
What is that?
It's kind of interesting. It's kind of funny because, they'll fill out their form. I'll send the background check and they'll come back denied. And
you don't always know why.
They won't tell us anything. There's no code. There's no nothing. There's no hint. There's no nothing. And I have to look at the customer in the eye. I'm like, oh, well, you got denied. Why would that be? I don't know. What'd your lawyer tell you? And they're like, well, that was expunged. I'm like, exactly. Go talk to your lawyer. Go talk to the judge. But I guarantee you know why you got denied. Yeah. I don't.
That's where I wish a lot of people understood that are against guns for say. It's not just like anybody can walk off the street and get a gun.
Not from an FFL.
Right.
But they could buy one off of Joe Blow on the street corner, and that's where a lot of people have a problem. They don't like that. They don't like the fact that you can go to, an event like Swappers Day or something and buy a gun just from Jimmie Hawke, out in the parking lot. Yeah. And it's completely legal. It is legal to do so.
That's not legal in every state, though, is it? It's
just, not every state. No.
I know it is in Ohio. It's legal, but do you like that? In your opinion, that each state has its own gun laws?
No.
Do you think it should be universal across the country?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I should not have to worry about carrying my pistol through Illinois.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah, I get that part. Yeah.
I hate that. And hopefully the governor of Illinois is not listening, but I've always got a pistol on me as I'm going
I'd love to have him on the podcast.
Right? Come talk to Cole.
But yeah, I get that. Yeah, it is. I do like the carry laws in Ohio, and I get it is I guess I do like that it is not necessarily easy to cross state lines with, guns, but at the same time, it's hard to say I want it easier because it almost sounds like you want it too easy.
Too lax.
Yeah, I don't want it too lax, but
Yeah.
I do also I want to be able to have the right and the ability to open carry, per se,
Yeah.
in whatever state that I'm in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we just talked about the numbers, in California, Illinois, New York, these numbers are horrible and they have the strictest gun laws.
No one's ever correlated that for some reason.
we have our issues here in Ohio, but we have some of the most lax,
Yeah.
some of the most liberal gun laws, and I love it.
Pause for 1 second.
Sure.
This camera only records for an hour.
But I think it was July last year, we were allowed to do the constitutional carry.
Mm-hmm.
I had this lady, she came in and she's like, I'm not all for that. I'm like, why is that? And she said, well, I picture a food fight at Walmart, except with pistols. I'm like, really? I said, you're really categorizing us all as we're all nuts. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, how many people have you ran off the road with your car on purpose? And she's like, none. I said, don't act like you didn't want to. I said, we've all had that moment where we're like, someone just cut us off or someone did something stupid and we just want to run them off the road. But guess what? We don't do it. Why don't we? We all believe that we're going to have to answer for that crime,
Morals.
Morals. No one wants to go to jail. I don't want to hurt another human being. I certainly don't want to scratch my car, But I asked her that and she's like, and I said, gun folks are the same way. I said, I don't want to hurt anybody. I do not. I've told Trisha and I've told a lot of my family and customers, I'm like, wear shirts that say, I have a gun. Maybe not that exact same, but she'll wear Glock shirts. She has a shirt that says, not a pepper spray kind of girl, and it's got a Glock on it. That lets you know that's not the one.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not the one, So
yeah, I agree. But yeah, I wish you don't have to be super open about it either. Like that's the thing. Just wearing a Glock shirt doesn't make you crazy,
right,
per se.
Yeah,
you can wear a Glock shirt and it means maybe you just like Glocks.
Maybe you do.
Maybe you don't even own one.
Maybe you don't even know what they are.
Exactly.
But
yeah, I agree. Like, I don't know. The gun whole thing, I didn't even really necessarily plan to get into like this deep into the gun side of things.
I love guns.
But I know you like guns. So
I was cleaning a rifle right before I came here.
Really?
I had to leave a rifle just so I come here.
I know I actually did see Jacob showed me because he showed me the gun that you cleaned. I believe it was his grandfather's,
Yeah.
and it was impressive to see. Like, and that was when I didn't even know that you were part of Buckeye Shooting Center or anything at that point. And I was like, what do you mean Jimmie did it? And he like told me, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I mean, I would have guessed obviously that you like guns because you do wear Glock shirts and stuff like that to volleyball.
Yeah.
So like I'd see it, but like I just, it's nothing. And that's the thing is you don't always have to be crazy about it. You were never super public about it. It's not like you were standing there with a megaphone, protesting that we should have guns.
Right.
You were just standing there, or you were just being yourself. And you know what? I like guns.
Yep.
That's all it is.
I had to laugh because God love Jacob. He had a sign there that says guns aren't welcome. And Trish and I walked over right after he put that sign up. We walked up to that sign and we're both looking at it. And we look at each other. And then Jacob's across the way going, that applies to you too.
You should have said it applies to him too.
Right?
Because never mind. I won't even say it. I don't want to get him in trouble. But
No. I mean, it's just funny because, I mean, I can see, there's alcohol there. There's competition there. People do dumb things,
right?
A sign normally doesn't stop people from doing dumb things,
right?
So, but
I guess, do you have anything else you want to talk of guns?
Off the guns?
Or off anything, really?
What's funny is when we were talking about the Guard, and we were talking about my plan and, retiring at 41, I had a lieutenant colonel, and this applies to you when you and Sierra have kids. My battalion commander and I were coming home late one night from a long day, a meeting we had in Columbus, and it's like 10 or 10:30 at night, and we're driving back, and I'm tired. And I sat there and I told him, I said, and this was toward the end of my career. I probably was a year or two from retiring, but I said, I can't wait to get home and crawl in bed. Trisha's already asleep, I said, I can't wait to crawl in bed, put my arms around Trisha, give her, a kiss on the cheek, and fall asleep. I'm like, I can't wait to get there. And he goes, when I get home, I'm going to give my 2 kids a kiss on the forehead. They're already in bed also. I'm going to give them a kiss on the forehead and then go back to work. And I don't know if he was trying to brag or what, because he was awesome. He was on the fast track to be a general. I mean, he was super smart, hard worker, dedicated, great guy. He's like, yeah, he was in war college, so he had some papers to do and some work to do and research to do. So he was going to be up good part of the night. And I remember him telling me that, and my first reaction was, do you think it'll be worth it? That's the first thing I said. Do you think it'll be worth it? And he goes, what? I said, the time you're spending away from your family. Your kids are growing up right underneath you, right underneath your nose, and you don't get to see them because you're working all the time. I said, just out of curiosity, do you think this work we're putting in, the time we're putting in, do you think it's going to be worth it? He goes, well, I'd like to think so. And I'm like, well, I hope so too. I said, but I'm not going to take that chance. I said, I told the state sergeant major that one of these days I'm going to be sitting in my cabin up in Utica. And I'm going to be sitting in a swing with a beer in my hand. And I'm going to wish my dad's going to come around the corner with a beer in his hand. And he's not going to be there. And what I do between now and that day, it's all on me. And the state sergeant major looked at me. He goes, I lost my dad 2 years ago. He goes, you're doing the right thing. Shook my hand. That was about 2 months before I retired. But this colonel, I said, I'm leaving for that reason. I'm leaving so that I don't miss any more time than I have to with my family. I don't have any kids, but that was time deployments, training, that's time I missed with Trisha. That's time that I missed with mom and dad, my nieces, nephews, and my best friend. I'm missing all this time. And he goes, well, I'd like to think it's going to be worth it. The work ethic I'm showing them and the future I can provide for them. And I'm like, yeah, so you just can't replace time with money. You just can't, and sure enough, it was a couple years after I retired, he called me and he goes, I'm taking your advice. And I'm like, what do you mean taking my advice? He said, I'm retiring. I'm not going to make general.
Wow.
He was on a fast track to general, but he was putting so much time in that he was missing his kids, his wife. So he ended up retiring and not making general, all on his choice.
You just helped a lot of questions that I already had.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Before you came over, so this business, I started my own business with podcast production of other people, videography, photography for sports mainly, kind of running some websites for some sports organizations and stuff like that. Got to the point where I started doing too much of it. I was like, I need to probably start a business so that I'm doing this the legal way.
Sure.
And I record Friday episodes where it's called Beyond the Surface. And it's me and my best friend from high school. And we kind of we don't always have a topic in mind. Sometimes we just dive into crazy things of life, really.
Yeah.
And the one I just texted him about tonight and was like, dude, I want to talk to you. Like, I want to do a podcast on this, but I also was talking to him about it, kind of venting and stuff like that. And I was like, I just had a meeting this morning with somebody. They're thinking about starting a podcast, and I already work for the organization that he's a part of and do some other stuff for him. And they're thinking about starting a podcast. There's also another person that might be starting a podcast. And I'm like, there's just so much work. And it's great because I have all this excitement where I'm like, there's so much work and there's money's coming in for the business.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still have a full-time job. Mm-hmm. I still have a girlfriend that, I want to spend time with. I still have family that I need to go see. So I was like, it's all giving me excitement, anxiety, and stress all at the same time. And it was like, honestly, I don't know which the right answer. But I like that you said that time.
Yep.
And that's something, as my parents are getting older, it's starting to kick in a little bit. And my parents, I will say my parents smoke, my parents drink, and their health, it's crazy. My dad said his health screenings at work were always amazing and he couldn't believe it. But I'm like, there's no way that you smoke a pack a day and drink a beer, 4 beers a night and can be completely healthy, but whatever. I like that you kind of brought that up. And it's crazy that, things happen in mysterious ways and they happen for a reason.
Oh yeah.
So I really do appreciate you saying that you just said. And cause it was not something I asked about. It
Right.
was, hey, is there anything else you want to say? And that's what you say. It's just weird how that works.
Yeah. Like I said, that thought crossed my mind just when we were talking about the garden. And we were talking about the plan, and everyone understood the plan. Mom and Dad understood that I had a plan. I have to admit, when I retired, I got to spend time with them, and then I went and became the CEO. And of course, all my time was spent there. I don't know how many times my mom's like, when are you retiring? Because she missed me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they all know that, and I'm sure you're the same way. Your work ethic drives the train.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, when I'm in something, I am in something,
Right.
and I'm going full bore and get out of the way. You know, I'll be back. The train will come back, but I mean, get out of the way because
Yeah.
I'm going. And you know, so yeah, I think they hated the fact that I started working again. But now since June, you know, I've spent time with them, and you know, they can call me up and like, hey, can you help me move this chair? Yep. They live in Utica.
Yeah.
15 minutes, I'll be up. You know, and it's so nice to have that freedom.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so but yeah, you can't replace time with money.
I like that.
But money drives a lot of stuff. I mean, you can't have a house without money.
Right.
Can't have groceries without money.
No, yeah, that's the thing too. Is me and Sierra want to move, but guess what? That costs a lot of money.
It does.
Especially for what we're looking for with land and everything.
Yeah.
Like we don't get me wrong. Like she bought this house, and when I met her, she already had it. But it's been a great house. But we had a point in our life where we were sitting on the front porch of our house, and I don't know if you noticed when you're walking in, like you can see my neighbor's back porch right here.
Mm-hmm.
And we were sitting on the front porch and having a normal conversation, this tone, with our neighbor on our back porch. And she grew up, you know, with a little bit of land. I grew up with a little land. And we looked at each other after our neighbor went in. Love our neighbor to death. She's
Sure.
awesome. But we got to move.
Yep.
I don't want to be able to talk to my neighbor in a normal voice from our front porch to her back porch.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're looking for land. So it costs money. So
Oh, it does.
It's, yeah, but you can't replace time with money.
You can't.
That's good.
Yeah. I notice I'm getting older because our neighborhood, we live over there on Derby, and I've noticed that, you know, loud noises, like cars that drive down my road with no freaking muffler.
Why, first off?
Right. Or they decide that they're, you know, on the Indy track and they got to take off like a bat out of hell. Drives me insane. And poor Trisha got to hear about it because I'm like, we have to move. We were looking at one house, and this was in the country, you know, and we're looking at it, we're like, oh, this could be the one. Maybe we'll do some more research on this when we're sitting in the park, in the driveway. And like 4 quads went right down the road, just as loud as they could. Whoa! And I literally, Trisha didn't say a word. I didn't say a word. I put it in reverse, and we left.
That answered that.
Yep. I'm getting old, so I need to go somewhere where it's quiet.
Oh, I get that. I want that now, so I get that 100%. But I do have one final question that I like to ask all of my guests, and it is, if you could go back in time and tell your 16-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
16 through 2025 is a tough time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard time. And there were times where I doubted myself. There were times where I questioned who I was and what I was going to do. And if I had me standing beside me, I'd probably tell myself, don't quit. Don't quit. You're going to come out on the other side. You know, you're going to come out on the other side. Don't quit. You know, things are going to get challenging, more challenging than we're ready for. You know, at 16, we think we know everything. I knew everything. I was so smart when I was 16. And between 16 and, like I said, about 25, I got knocked down a lot. A lot of doors closed, you know, bad decisions, just, but I never quit, you know, and that's what I would probably tell a 16-year-old is never quit. You're going to get knocked down a lot. Brush yourself off, pick yourself up, and overcome that challenge. I think a lot of kids nowadays aren't forced to do that.
Right.
They're just not forced to. You get picked on, we'll just pull you out of school, you know, or mommy and daddy will take care of it, you know, whatever. Dad didn't. Dad said, you take care of your problem,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would probably tell my 16-year-old self not to quit, you know, pick yourself up, don't whine, don't complain, you know, don't lay on the ground, pick yourself up, keep going.
Man. You embody the slogan of this podcast of grab the bull by the horns. That's exactly the whole thing with the podcast is it's kind of, it's not directly like I don't want to be completely motivational, but at the same time, that's a big reason I asked that question is, it can relate to a 26-year-old. It can relate to a 47-year-old. It can relate to anybody, no matter where they're at in their life. And the slogan of this podcast is grab the bull by the horns. And the whole idea behind that is you're going to get knocked down in life. We're the bull rider. The life is the bull. Mm-hmm. It's going to throw you off. Yeah. You got to get up, grab the bull by the horns, get back on, and keep going.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
That's why bull riders are some of the toughest dudes that you will ever see in this world. And that's why I kind of went with the Roughnecks and everything with it is, they're just tough. And that's something that I feel like we need more of in this world is toughness.
Yeah.
So.
No, I see myself getting older because I give people advice all the time now, and
keep doing it.
Yeah, well,
trust me, keep doing it.
I got at 16 to 18, I didn't have a plan. I was going to be a football player.
Right.
Unrealistic, I didn't get any bigger.
I was going to be a D1 football player if you asked me at 16. So.
Right. Yeah, me too. But I talk to a lot of 16, 17-year-olds nowadays, and it's like, what's your plan? And they don't have one. And I always immediately say, you don't need one.
Right.
You don't have to have a plan because it's going to change.
Yeah, whether you have one or not, it's going to change.
It's going to change. So I tell everybody, I tell kids, when you graduate high school, you better have at least a plan to go. Get on a trail and go. Don't sit at home. Don't sit in the truck and try to find yourself. Find yourself on the trail.
Right.
Go on the trail and go.
That's the best way to find yourself is learn through your trials, learn through your mishaps, learn through all the stuff that you do, whether you like it or don't like it.
Right.
It goes terribly wrong or honestly great.
Yep.
You're going to learn through every experience that you go through, especially in, like you said, that 16 to 25. Mm-hmm. That range right there. And, I'm only 26. So I can tell you, I don't know what's in store for me in my future, per se, but I can tell you that I learned a lot about myself and what I liked and did not like in these past, 9 years, 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
I've learned a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a big range. And I like that you say that, I don't really have one. That's good. You don't need one.
You don't need one.
But I like go. You got to do something.
But get going because, a lot of kids, like I said, they no offense to anyone, but if they're sitting at home in their parents' basement playing video games and working at Wendy's, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Everyone else is passing you by,
Right.
Life is passing you by. You got to get on the trail and go. Yeah. Whether you go in the military, get a skill, go to college, do something.
Right. And nowadays there's online colleges. There's so many different paths that you can take. And that's the thing is there's no excuse to be lazy anymore. Mm-mm. The world is at our fingertips with technology, and you don't even need technology for everything, but everything is readily available. I learned how to video edit through YouTube.
Right.
I learned a lot about the podcast through YouTube.
Yep.
You can learn everything through the internet. If you want something, and if you think it's your passion or something that you want to go after, whether it's starting your own business or working for somebody else and learning about that position, everything's readily available at your fingertips through the internet.
Yep. No, I'm a brand new dryer repairman because of YouTube. I've had to fix my dryer a few times. Pull up YouTube.
Oh, I do that. When it comes to home repairs, that is the number one thing. One, I'll try it myself. It doesn't work. All right, YouTube.
Yep.
So, Jim, I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Pleasure, cool.
It was awesome. I definitely probably could have talked to you for 4 hours, but I don't want to do that yet. Maybe we'll do another one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we'll do another one. Get a little deeper into some things or whatever. Yeah. There's a lot of different paths we could take.
Oh yeah, like I said, I'll go down the rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, I love rabbit holes. We texted about it. Rabbit holes are, especially in podcasts, are the best because honestly, I maybe used a quarter of my script. That's what I love about it. That's what I told you when we were talking about it. He's like, what's your script? And I was like, I have some stuff, but I don't usually follow it.
There you go.
It goes down rabbit holes.
Absolutely. As it should.
Yeah.
They're a lot more interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
If I used to read from a script completely, I didn't even comment on the questions that they answered, and it was really boring. Now I'm like, no, we're going to go down these rabbit holes and see where they lead us.
Yeah.
So
yeah, when you said is there anything you don't want to talk about? I was like, nothing comes to mind. Love that phrase now.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure, Cole.
Be on the lookout. We'll have 2 more episodes this week. Episodes are going to be coming out Monday, Wednesday, Friday until the end of the month, just to kind of get back on track because I've been a little laxed on the podcast, but we're getting way more into it because I've quit being lazy.
There you go.
So,
Attaboy.
but at the start of January, we'll be back to Monday, Friday episodes. Mondays with guests, and Fridays it'll either be Q&A with Dante or me and Dante will do Beyond the Surface. Also, like I said, look out for announcements for the volleyball tournament. You're playing again next year.
You're not gonna win that one. Not next year.
I don't play.
Oh well,
Sierra's
not gonna.
Hey, she didn't win the first year.
But she won this year.
She won this year.
She ain't gonna win next year.
Well, yeah, they picked up they picked up Jordan as their 6th this year. They dropped the girl. They had 3 girls the first year.
Yeah.
They dropped a girl, picked up Jordan instead. So
yeah, I'm gonna use the NIL.
There you go. No, what you need to do is start getting your team now.
That's what I'm doing. I'm recruiting now.
I've always once said that I told Sierra, I was like, there's gonna be one year that I'm gonna go on a team, not your team, and I'm just going to go in and beat you. But at the same time, it's kind of, is it weird to win your own tournament?
That's what's tough. As long as you do it honest.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't say anything. I don't know. I like not playing. It's kind of more fun doing it. Now, granted, I love playing, but in that tournament, I like sitting back behind and watching everything come to life.
You tell Sarah, she's got a target on her back. I'm coming after.
But yeah, that's all we got for today's episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. Until next time, you guys know the deal. Life is hard and it's going to knock you down just like a bull does to a bull rider. Don't let that bull of life walk all over you. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Roughnecks, out.